Monty Brogan is a man who grew up on the energetic, bustling streets of New York. Once he was the guy everyone knew, a lively, quick-witted character who could light up a room. But behind that cheerful exterior, Monty hid a much darker world. He got tangled up in drug dealing and spent years carving out his place in that shadowy scene. To him, life was about money and power, hanging out with friends, roaming the streets, and feeling like he could do anything at any moment. That was Monty's definition of living. But then one day everything fell apart. The cops showed up at his door, and Monty found himself on a path he could never return from. He was busted for dealing drugs, taken to court, and the verdict was clear: prison. As the reality set in, the joy and freedom that once defined his life began to slip through his fingers. Now the story zooms in on Monty's last 24 hours. His final day of freedom before he faces a 7-year sentence. It's a day of reckoning. He can't escape the truth he's been avoiding for years. This last day will be spent confronting the choices he made, saying goodbye to his family and friends, and reassessing his relationship with his girlfriend. But above all, Monty keeps asking himself the same question: how did I end up here? This final day isn't just about farewells. It's about regret and anger. It's a day where he's forced to think about what comes next. The streets of New York used to be his playground, but now they're leading him straight to the cold walls of a prison cell. And on this day, Monty is trying to find a new meaning in a life that's slipping away. Monty's final day begins as a journey of reckoning. His first stop, his father's bar. Monty's dad, James, is a tough but loving man, a former firefighter who's deeply shaken by the reality of his son's impending prison sentence. Yet he tries to keep a brave face for Monty. This conversation with his father is perhaps one of the hardest moments in Monty's life. As a father, James has done all he could to steer his son back onto the right path, but now it's too late. These moments between father and son are a bittersweet mix of nostalgia for a simpler past and the harsh acceptance of what's to come. After this emotional encounter, Monty decides to meet up with his old friends one last time. Jacob and Slattery are his closest pals, but their friendship is complicated. Jacob is a shy, introverted teacher who's idolized Monty for years but never got involved in his world of crime. Slattery, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. A confident, thrill-seeker addicted to the fast life of money and excitement, the kind of friend who only fueled Monty's downfall. Both of them are loyal to Monty, but in different ways. And this last day will put that loyalty to the test. As Monty spends time with these two old friends, he's forced to reflect on who he is and the company he's kept. But the real challenge is his relationship with his girlfriend, Naturelle. Deep down, Monty wonders if she's the reason his world came crashing down. Was it Naturelle who tipped off the cops? This suspicion gnaws at him, even as he tries to hold on to the love they once shared. Naturelle had been by his side through the highs of his life, but now Monty can't decide if he can truly trust her. Torn between doubt and love, Monty meets Naturelle for a final dinner. On the surface, everything seems calm, but inside Monty's mind is a storm that won't settle. Throughout this last day, Monty confronts his past choices, the people he's surrounded himself with, and the future he's about to face. All the while, one question echoes in his mind: how did I get here? This is his last chance to set things right before he goes behind bars. But is this really a way out, or just another way of running from himself? By the end of the day, Monty has faced everyone in his life. Yet his regrets and fears only seem to have grown larger. At this point, the audience is left wondering alongside Monty: do the choices we make inevitably trap us, or is there always a way out no matter how far we've fallen? Monty's final day pushes him to both a physical and emotional breaking point. By the end of it, he can no longer ignore the truths he's been avoiding. He's already confronted his father, his friends, and his girlfriend. But the real battle is the one he faces within himself. There's nowhere left to hide. Monty finds himself trapped in a clash of rage and regret. Either he lets his anger explode, burning everything down around him, or he accepts his mistakes and quietly surrenders to his fate. This is when one of the most unforgettable scenes of Monty's journey unfolds. He steps into the bathroom and stares at his own reflection in the mirror. A monologue begins where Monty unleashes his fury not just at himself, but at all of New York, at the city and everyone in it. He lashes out at the rich, the poor, immigrants, his family, his friends, and, most brutally, at himself. It's like an eruption of anger that he's bottled up his entire life. Looking at his own face, he realizes that, in the end, The true enemy has always been himself. The monologue is Monty's desperate attempt to shift the blame onto others. But deep down, he knows his worst enemy is his own flawed choices. This outburst shocks the audience while at the same time it reveals just how fragile Monty has become. It's the peak of his internal reckoning, a moment where his rage, self-loathing, regret, and helplessness all collide. But after the rage subsides, Monty knows he has to make a real decision. He meets with Jacob and Slattery again, and in a moment of raw vulnerability, he asks them to do something extreme, beat him up before he heads to prison. He wants them to make his face unrecognizable. It's as if he thinks the physical pain might somehow dull the emotional agony, or that changing his appearance could erase the mistakes of his past. If he can't be the Monty who made all those bad decisions, maybe he can leave that man behind. At first, Jacob and Slattery are hesitant, unwilling to hurt their friend. But they eventually agree, and Monty's face ends up a blooded mess. Yet the physical pain doesn't bring him any relief. The real fight is still raging inside him. This is the true climax, the merging of physical agony with the torment within. Monty is living through the most intense moment of his life, one that will leave him forever changed. There's no going back. This moment is a turning point not just for Monty, but for the audience too. Can true inner peace be found even in the face of unbearable pain, or is Monty's story already over? These are the questions the audience is left with, wondering what Monty's next step will be, and if there's even a future left for him to claim. After Monty's explosive breakdown, he's finally forced to face the unavoidable reality of his life. There's no turning back, no chance to rewrite the past. With only hours left before he must report to prison, Monty takes a drive with his father. His face is still swollen and bloody from the beating, but that physical pain is nothing compared to the storm raging inside him. During the drive, James offers Monty a way out. Run. Leave New York behind. Go somewhere far away, head west, past the border. Start over in some quiet, sleepy town where no one knows who you are. Take on a new name, live a simple life. As James paints this escape plan, you can see a flicker of hope light up in Monty's eyes. For a moment, the audience too begins to believe that this might actually be possible. We're swept into a fantasy, imagining Monty settling down in a peaceful farmhouse, far from the chaos of his past. He meets new people, falls in love, gets married, and starts a family. We see scenes of Monty playing with his children, living a life that is simple, honest, and happy. This glimpse of an alternate future is almost too perfect, leaving a bittersweet sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, Monty could escape the darkness he's created. But it's all just a dream. Reality snaps back as Monty rides alongside his father, knowing deep down that this new life will never be his. Slowly, the fantasy fades, and we're brought back to the cold, harsh truth. Monty is still on that road, heading towards the prison. He has no choice but to face the consequences of his actions and accept the loss of his freedom for the next 7 years. His father's escape plan, just a fleeting fantasy, remains a comforting illusion, never to be realized. In the end, Monty has no choice but to confront the bleak reality of prison life. Despite the grim future ahead, the audience witnesses Monty's struggle until the very last moment. His story is one of a man grappling with the weight of his past. Even with all the anger and regret he carries, there's a sense of quiet reckoning, a hint of inner clarity emerging through the pain. In the final scene, as Monty stands on the threshold of the prison, he takes one last look at the world he's leaving behind. It's a silent lesson to the audience. Our choices, whether we realize it or not, shape who we become. Escape might be a comforting fantasy, but in the end, facing reality is inevitable.